Now, authenticity is pretty subjective, but even if we can't put it into words, most of us recognise it when we see it. It's our inner bullshitometer. And yesterday I had two experiences that were polar opposites on the scale of authenticity. One was a singing style that makes me die a little on the inside. The other was an acting choice that is lifeblood to the soul. So this video is part RANT, part RAVE. I'm going to vent about one and venerate the other. Hi, I'm Scott. You're watching Inside Musicals, the channel for all things musical theatre. This video is going to be more discussion than tutorial, so let me know what you think. Authenticity is something I bring up a lot on this channel, whether it's for singing, acting, writing, because it's something I expect of myself. And even when I fall short, and yes, I often fall short, it's not for want of trying. But never mistake authentic for naturalistic. Authenticity can be stylized. Even in broad physical humour of sitcom, authenticity can still come from a place of honesty. And just as acting styles evolve to reflect our changing values, our social identity, so too authenticity can take different forms, but still ring true. Now, if we think back to James Dean, poster boy of the realist movement of the 50s and 60s, he was striving to represent how people really spoke and moved and interacted in everyday life. Now we might look at those gestures and tics and mumblings as affectations. But thanks to the influence of, say, Lee Strasberg on his acting style, it at least comes from a place of impulse and motivation. So in spite of the artifice, we recognise the attempt, the symbolic representation of authenticity. So here's my rant, inspired by two ads that I saw back to back that both resorted to the same musical cliche. You know the one, they take a well-known song, slow it down beyond all recognition and add a morbid, insipid female vocal. And before you're outraged, my problem is not that it's a female vocal. My problem is with the affectation that is primarily favoured by certain female singers. My problem is not that it's slowed down. There are brilliant slowed-down covers of songs that bring something fresh to a lyric. I'm thinking John Farnham's 1970s cover of the Beatles' Help. I'm thinking the cover of Mad World as featured in the film Donnie Darko. I'm thinking Joni Mitchell's cover of her own song, From Both Sides Now, that made us weep with Emma Thompson in Love Actually. But slow does not intrinsically make a song profound, evocative, enigmatic. Without a convincing vocal performance, slow is just slow and not always interesting. My problem is not that it's a light, breathy vocal. Careers have been built on intimate vocals, from Marilyn Monroe, George Michael, jazz singers the world over. But intimate is not the same as arbitrarily breathy. And that's my problem here, the arbitrary vocal style in these ads. There's a disconnect between the performance and the meaning of the words. It's style over substance. Both of these ads were for travel. The first one features the song Feeling Good, originally written for the musical The Roar of the Grease Paint, The Smell of the Crowd, covered by Nina Simone in the 60s, by Michael Bublé in the 2000s, and the lyrics of the song suggest the exhilaration of someone experiencing freedom. I guess that's why the advertisers chose the song. But when you just listen to the vocal performance, birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun up in the sky, you know how I feel. From the sound of your voice, I'd say you feel like an 8-year-old on Prozac who doesn't really understand a word she's singing. And this is the other part of my irritation, this infantilized vocal style. Not exhilarating, not the sound of freedom. The next ad, also for travel, uses the song I've Been Everywhere. I've been everywhere, man, I've been everywhere. Originally a jaunty ditty, a list song, a patter song about all the places this person's been. But here she sings, I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. And I'm thinking, you don't sound too excited about it, or certain. Are you sure you've been everywhere? Do you even know where there is? This generalised, contrived vocal sounds bored, depressing. Look, stylistically, not my cup of tea. But in the right context, I'd be fine with it. If this were a promo for a horror film about a family being tormented by the spirit of a morose teenage girl, perhaps then the irony between the vocal performance and the lyrics would be suitably creepy, or at least funny. But this ad has no sense of irony, so it doesn't communicate. So for me, that's a fail. And look, it's not my intention to belittle either of these singers. These are only two examples among many. And chances are they're just session singers doing the evil bidding of a marketing department and a music producer. But still, the advertisers seem to think it conveys something. They think it's aspirational. They think we're stupid. And if this insipid vocal style is aspirational, what are we aspiring to? To be frail and confused? And some of the biggest perpetrators of this sound are producers of strong female-led dramas, so-called empowered stories. They use it in the show, they use it in the promos, but do they not hear what's being communicated? Because an audience looks for meaning in a performance, and where it lacks clarity, they'll piece together whatever they can based on what they see, or in this case, hear. So what does it say when the voice of female empowerment is embodied in the sound of an ambivalent preteen girl? Calm down. Just calm down. And look, you might argue that the point of empowerment is that women can be whatever they want, and that's entirely true. But when we're talking about authenticity, this arbitrary vocal style doesn't support the lyric. So I call BS on it. But what gives me hope is the extraordinary Amanda Plummer and her masterful performance as the villain Vadik in season 3 of PICARD. It's over the top, it's wild, and yet it's grounded in truth. I mean, she pushes it right to the edge, but in spite of the fireworks, the scenery chewing, she evokes real pathos and humour and rage and menace. And it's thrilling. It's theatrical, but then Star Trek has a tradition of casting theatrical performers. Amanda's own father, Christopher Plummer, who we've spoken about on this channel, played, I think it was General Chang in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. And theatrical makes sense for Star Trek. When you're dealing with an alien universe and costumes and makeup and prosthetics, you need a larger-than-life performance to cut through, to read. And it's not just that it's larger than life, but it's precise and articulate in a way that maybe a naturalistic, understated performance might not communicate. But because it's connected to an idea, it feels authentic. And what I love about watching Amanda Plummer and so many mature actors is that look of ease and confidence and fluency in the craft, honed from years of experience. As an audience, we feel the life in the character rather than the earnestness of the actor. And in PICARD, that original next-gen cast bring authentic personal history to the screen, and it's beautiful. Because it looks like they enjoy the work, and it brings me such joy to watch, to be surprised and moved by those unexpected moments, those choices, those wordless interactions. At a time when stories have become commodified as content rather than expression or experiences, we should be critical of what we're being fed. Switch on that bullshitometer. And not just accept the guff that fills our time, but to savour and acknowledge those things that enrich it. Now, I love Tchaikovsky's music. He wears his heart on his sleeve. But in academia, he's often dismissed as merely a melodist, someone who writes a good melody. Now, his music can be florid, jubilant, playful, despairing. But when I listen to it, I believe that he believed every note that he wrote. It feels authentic. Now, each of us has a different benchmark for what authentic is. But as actors, singers, writers, composers, artists, when faced with a choice between clever, popular, fashionable, and authentic, know that authentic connects. And regardless of the style, authentic endures. Rant over. Better out than in. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I love you, always. Now, get out there and be brilliant. And authentic.